There's so many ways that I could start this video, and just as a quick heads up, this was something that I asked my Twitch chat if they'd like to see me do before I started sitting down and actually talking about it. I usually do commentary videos anyway, so this is something that I was like, oh yeah, I talk about this enough as it is, might as well put it on my YouTube. What's the problem there? No harm, right? But the thing about YouTube is it's even a part of the problem. It's a part of what I'm going to talk about today, which is basically capitalism and how it destroys people's lives. Genuinely destroys people's lives, opportunities, and even in some cases, their will to keep going, their will to live. See, just the idea of money for me personally is enough to make me shudder. I don't look at money and see something to look forward to. I see a shackle that binds me, something that removes me from being able to do things that other people have readily available to them, where I'm just sitting there and I'm like, well, I have to figure out if I want soup today or if I want to pay for my cat's food, that kind of thing. I had an entire period of my life where I was doing exactly that, where I was so nervous about what I was going to be able to eat and what I was going to be able to afford, whether that be bills or medication for my cat, which she was on at the time, or just being able to afford the bus fare to get to my work. It's those things that make you really think about and second guess the society that we live in today. It's those things that really make you go, what the heck? Why is this normalized? Why do we think that one person having X amount of green paper, cotton, whatever the heck they're made out of, makes them more or less superior than other people? So even right now, as I'm trading with this villager, this is just a game. This does not impact my real life situation, obviously, because, like I said, it's a video game. I'm just playing Minecraft. Sure, this gets me advantages and perks in the game, but it doesn't help me in the real world because this is just a video game. But you can see how having money or having currency of any kind can get you things. And for example, in Minecraft, that currency is emeralds. It can get you terracotta. It can get you diamond. Whoops. It can get you diamond armor. It can get you all kinds of things, but it's situational. If you don't have enough emeralds, you can't afford any one of these things. And say you really needed something, like a house or shelter. I mean, I already basically said that by saying it's a house, but without money in the real world, you can't afford things like a house. You just work paycheck to paycheck on an apartment in a society that continues to raise the stakes of the cost of living. So you have to choose between how much you're going to eat that week and being able to actually survive, which is not healthy. And anybody should realize that that's not healthy. Anybody should realize that that's not a way to live your life. Living paycheck to paycheck, not knowing if you're going to be able to eat or pay your rent. There's nothing about that screams that I want to continue that process. There's nothing about that makes me feel like, oh yeah, no, I want to keep going the way I'm going right now. I want to keep living this way. No, that's ridiculous. That's actually ridiculous. So when I see, I'm very active on Twitter, right? Because as a content creator, you have to be. So I near constantly see GoFundMes, especially in America, specifically in America, of people who need help. because they can't afford their medication, because they can't afford their surgery, because they can't afford someone's funeral casket. It's insane. It's actually insane. The fact that you can't even die in peace without having to worry about the fact that your loved ones might not be able to actually afford your tomb, that's insane. You'd think with death it would be the end of the struggle, the end of the cycle. But people have to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars just to make sure that they can bury or cremate a loved one. Do you see what I'm going with here? Not just that, but the cost of living, at least in America, is extremely high. When you live in a particular state, let's say California, for example, a $3,000 apartment is cheap. $3,000. For me, in the state that I live in, a one-bedroom, not even a one-bedroom apartment, a studio apartment was $1,000. And it was only $1,000 because I had to tack on an extra $25 to make sure that I could keep my cat with me. My cat, who I had just adopted at the time because my other cat had passed away. Oh geez, I need to sleep. So, what does that exactly mean? Does that mean that people who have animals, for example, are less deserving of having a living space? Or that I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, a lot of people could equate that to property value and how some animals can, ultimately overrun and destroy your property. But at the same time, you've got to realize you only have that property because you thought it was an investment. You went out of your way to buy an entire place so that you could rake up the prices, so that you could afford your huge mortgage. And not you specifically, I'm talking about landlords. I'm basically talking about how landlords scalp their renters, their tenants, the people who don't have the same amount of money as them and don't have the same amount of resources. Every single time I see one of those TikToks on, TikTok, where they talk about, here's how I made, $50,000 in just a short few weeks. It's always, I lived with my parents. And then I took out a loan, and then I worked really hard while living with my parents to be able to afford this studio condo. And with that studio condo, I was able to sell it out to another person, raise the stakes, and make them pay an arm and a leg just to survive. Make it make sense. Or, stop being greedy. It's very simple. You can stop being greedy at any time. You can choose not to let greed envelop your life. You can choose to. Because it is a choice. It really is. Granted, there's a lot of people who maybe they are nice landlords. Maybe they actually do care about their tenants. But if you actually cared about your tenants and not just yourself in the situation that you put yourself in, I don't know. But I personally would lower the price of these apartments that you're renting out to people because the prices are ridiculous. But then again, I can't just solely blame landlords. I mean, corporations play a huge part in this as well. They rake up the prices of food for people. They rank up the prices of gasoline for people to be able to get to their jobs. They rank up the prices of pharmaceutical drugs like insulin, which if you don't have insurance in the US, I mean, it's upwards of $1,000 to $700 a month for some people to be able to afford their life-saving medication. Life-saving. It's not just that they want insulin, it's because they need it to survive. They need it to be able to live their life. So it's kind of insane that anybody would be able to refuse a person because they don't have enough money. That does not matter in the long run at all. Like, okay, I say this constantly on stream, but when you die and you are buried in the ground, I'm sorry, there's no chat here, but when you die, money means nothing because you're dead. You're literally dead. And I could not tell you what happens on the other side. I'm not God. I'm not, a shaman. I'm not like any of these people who have a knowledge of their own spiritual identity. I'm just a random weirdo on the internet talking to you about capitalism and how the fact that of the matter is money won't go with you to the grave. So people who hoard money, especially, are taking from people who have not, who don't have the same opportunities because they do not have that money afforded to them. And it's just a fact. It's just a general statement. Why do you see people who are the sons and daughters of famous actors go back into the same fields that their parents do? I wonder why. Probably because they have the money to be able to do that. Why do you see the sons and daughters of millionaires and billionaires become millionaires and billionaires themselves? I don't know why. Probably because their parents already have the money to get them to that place, to make them wealthy, because they already have it. The rich just keep getting richer, and the poor, well, they either get poorer or they get dead. And that's just a statement. That's just a statement. And it might sound like I'm angry, but guess what? It's because I am. I am. I genuinely am. There are so many things that I've wanted to do in my life for the longest time, but I wasn't able to do them because I didn't have the money. For the longest time, there was things that I could have been able to do, but I couldn't do because I didn't have the money. I wanted to continue living in my apartment, but I knew that I didn't have the money when the big old panoramic hit, so I had to give it up to somebody else who I thought had the money to be able to take care of the apartment. Then I got freaking scammed because I didn't have the money. And it's not only that, it's the whole insurance thing too. You pay money for insurance, right? So that insurance is supposed to be able to pay for things like medication, for things like doctor's appointments, for things like your glasses and such. What happens when that same medication is not fully covered by the insurance that you're paying a lot of money a month for, or at least enough money that it hurts, especially when you're poor, and especially when you're middle class, which is going closer and closer to the end of the spectrum that is being poor. Make it make sense, because I worked in optics for literal a year and a half. I almost said years. It felt like years because that's how bad it was. I loved being able to give people the gift of sight, but there's so many times that I had to steer people away from the thing that looked good on them and worked properly for their situation, because not only did they not have the money, but their insurance wouldn't cover it. Their insurance wouldn't cover fully things that they really need. Prescription lenses with added features that would help benefit them from future damage to their eyes. But no, insurance, because it's backed by huge corporations, only cares about making the money from the individual, and they want to be able to scrounge up as much as they can from that situation. And that's just a fact, because I had to live with it. I had to see it every single day that I worked that job. I really wish that I had the opportunity of some of these big creators, the capability of having money. And this is not me being like jealous. I mean, I guess I am a little jealous, but it's mostly that money equates you being able to help people. Not only money, but clout equates you being able to help people. So when you have both of those things and you don't, you choose not to, that's incredibly selfish. But in the same spectrum, in the same, area of this situation, the concept of money itself should be absolutely abolished. It should. Because it doesn't actually do anything. It just holds power over people. That's it. That's it. The rich keep getting richer, which means they in turn keep getting more power. They keep being able to elevate themselves to higher and higher levels of prestige, where the poor keep getting poorer and the middle class starts sinking lower and lower to the level of poor. And then the only people who are able to live their lives comfortably and peacefully are the people who have the power, the people who have the money. No wonder the French Revolution happened. People were dying. People were starving. People were losing their jobs because they were getting laid off. They were losing everything. But in this situation, in this reality, in this time, people are leaving their jobs because they are not getting the money that they need. They are not achieving the level of happiness that the so-called American dream, at least in America here, I can't speak for other countries, is supposed to give you. The pursuit of happiness is gone. Long live money, I guess.